In case you haven't noticed, I'm Scottish. 60% of my audience are American, so when it comes to my accent, I do get a lot of comments about my Scottish accent, even though I'm still speaking English. I get the same types of comments when I say, for example, the number six. I'll get comments people saying sex. But it's not just the Scottish accent that Americans struggle with. So why is it that Americans do struggle with other accents?
It's shite being Scottish! With the lowest of the low!
Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do something different today. Instead of posting about troll comments that I normally get, what I tend to do is I build up the troll comments that I get, mostly about my accent, and every year I do a video on all the troll comments. But I'm going to do something different today. What I'm going to do now is, instead of posting those troll comments, I'm going to put myself into an American's shoes and try and understand what it is they don't understand.
But then she finds out I bought a ticket for Iggy Pop the same night.
We'll start off with the lack of exposure for Americans listening to other accents from around the world. Americans live in a huge country where most people sound relatively similar. From California to New York, the accent doesn't vary as widely as it does in the UK. For example, people from Scotland sound completely different to someone from England, whereas in America, someone from California will sound like someone from New York. Of course, the accents will differ, but they still kind of sound the same. British people grow up in a more accent diversity place because someone from Newcastle, a Geordie or a Cockney, a Glaswegian, someone from Edinburgh, we all sound completely different, even though the country is a lot smaller than the US. I also think that because us in Britain, we watch a lot of British TV from around the UK, we get to understand and hear all the accents from around the UK quite frequently. And I think watching UK media trains our ears from a very young age to look out or listen out for those UK dialects from around the UK. Next, we'll look at the media domination. American media dominates globally. How many people from outside the US grew up watching US television? I did. So from a very young age, I was watching American TV shows and I understood the accent straight away. So listening to an American accent from a very young age was normal to me. So as a result, non-Americans were trained without realising it to understand the American accent. Americans, on the other hand, don't get that same training in reverse because Americans will also watch American TV growing up and they won't watch TV from outside of America. So Americans hear their own accent reflected back at them constantly, so they don't develop an ear for a difference. The next thing I want to discuss is Americans listen to us through their own accent. So what I mean by that is when an American hears a Scottish accent, for example, they subconsciously try to translate it into their own sounds. So when I say the word six, for example, it sounds like six to everybody else that speaks English, but an American will hear six and they'll try and decipher that into their own accent and think that I'm saying sex. But to you and I, it's fine. Six, sex, two different words that sound completely different. But to someone in America, depending on where they are from America, they might try and decipher that into, well, what is it that person's saying? Sex. Even though if I was American and I heard someone saying six, that doesn't sound like sex at all, but to some people it does. But regardless, if they try and decipher your accent into their own accent, it just doesn't work. Instead of hearing your vowels and rhythms, they filter it through their own expectations, and that's how they get confused. It's like trying to read French with English grammar rules. You'll absolutely butcher it. As a Scottish person, I've had to understand the American accent the English accent, Irish accent, Australian accent, and that's all because of TV and media. So because of that, I can flip the accents. I can understand anyone who's speaking English, whether they're American, Australian, English, Irish, South African. As long as they're speaking English, I will understand them. Americans, on the other hand, they don't have to do that very often because all they do most of the time is listen to another American. So if they try and listen to someone outside of America, then unfortunately they will struggle with that. Let's talk about the myth of the neutral accent.
Rents, I need the money.
It was my fucking telly.
Americans often believe that their accent is the neutral accent or the normal accent. There's so many Americans that I've spoken to that say, I don't have an accent. And I'm like, well, you do have an accent because, believe it or not, every single person on planet Earth has an accent. You have an accent from where you're from or where you grew up, and that's the same with me. And if someone tells me I've got a thick accent, it doesn't really work. The only people that can tell me that my accent is thick is the people from around where I'm from. I'm from Glasgow, Scotland, so if I've got a thick Glaswegian accent, it would have to be compared to other people from my area. You can't say my accent's thick because it's different to yours. It's not thick, it's just different. So when an American listens to my accent, for example, they'll think that their accent's the normal one and mine's is a thick one or the wrong one, when it's not the case. We've both got different accents. Neither of us have the right accent or the wrong accent. An accent, however, is just a matter of perspective because we all have one. I think it's just maybe Americans aren't used to adjusting to other accents. One of the most important things about this video is it's not about stupidity, it's about experience. It's not that Americans are stupid or lazy, because they certainly aren't. It's just trying to get used to that and listening to a familiar accent. If they're not used to hearing someone from Scotland speaking or someone from South Africa speaking to them, then they're not going to be used to that accent. If you've never heard a Glaswegian speak before, then your brain isn't prepared for that rhythm and the speed of how we speak. Over time, exposure helps. Americans can learn, they just haven't had to. So the next time an American says, wait, say that again, then don't take it personally. But I will say though, while Americans have got the excuse of not understanding you because they haven't heard you before, it also doesn't give them or anyone else around the world the excuse to belittle you for your accent, because they're belittling you for your accent, but at the same time, they also have an accent. So they're belittling themselves, not only because they also have an accent, but they're belittling themselves for exposing themselves to not being able to understand a language that they speak.
Like, what school did I go to? How many O grades did I get? Could be like 6, could be none. It's not important.
So if you're from Scotland, for example, just remember, we've been training our ears for decades listening to Americans ever since we got our first TVs back in the 1950s and 1960s. So for 60 odd years, we've been listening to the American accent, whereas Americans even today still don't really listen to the Scottish accent because there is no big Scottish TV in America. There's no big Scottish movies apart from Trainspotting and Braveheart. So there's very little of Scottish exposure in America, but because of the boom of social media, they are starting to understand that there isn't just an American accent out there, there's more than an American accent. On my last note though, apologies to all my American friends out there. I'm not single-handedly pulling out the Americans, saying that you guys don't know how to understand the accents. I'm calling out the American one because it's mostly Americans that talk about my accent, because I do get people trying to belittle me for my accent, even though this is normal. It's a normal accent. But the only reason I'm saying Americans is because it's the majority of Americans who don't understand the other accents. It's not just Scottish, but maybe Irish, South African, Australian. The list goes on. But yeah, I'm not singling you guys out saying that you guys are stupid, because you certainly are not. You're my brothers. But my big question to you, if you're watching, is where are you from? And do people understand your accent fine from somewhere outside from where you're from? I don't mean if you're from Glasgow, other people from Glasgow understand you fine. If you're from New York, does someone from California understand you fine? Does someone from Australia understand you fine? Let me know down below where you're from and if people understand you. And most importantly, do you understand me? As always, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you soon.
Anybody else want to get my fucking way? You!
I'll be right back. What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Someone's in the